Erika is, I'm trying to see whether Erika is joining, not yet. Let us wait. I think she will be, and we are not waiting. We are going to proceed with the program. Erika will join as we go along. Good evening, Professor Bender Kelundwal, Professor Erika Kramer-Mebula, President of GlobalX in her absence, Professor Aradhana Agarwal, Professor Kyun Lee, Professor Mamo Mushi, and esteemed members of the GlobalX Scientific Board. I could see the presence of Erika there. Erika, we were just waiting for you. Yeah. And friends of GlobalX. Today, we are going to have this a book launch session of a book that was collectively produced by the GlobalX community. And this book was an outcome of a 2 days conference that we organized at the peak of COVID-19 sometime in October 2021. In fact, many of us were not very sure whether we would be there for this book to be released. But fortunately, thanks to the power of science and technology and so-called the access to vaccine, we are all here. And this book, I would say that would not have been possible without the perseverance of my co-editor, Professor Lakwinder. And my job is very limited in terms of most warmly welcoming you all for this important session. I must say that this particular session is an offshoot of the decision by the GlobalX Scientific Board in its last meeting, wherein we have planned to schedule a series of meetings on important issues to be organized at the instance of GlobalX Scientific Board and the GlobalX Secretariat, jointly with different regional networks. This event is, in that sense, a curtain raiser for the series of roundtables that we are planning to organize. And at this juncture, I would like to invite your ideas on the themes on which this particular roundtables could be organized. And an ideal roundtable will be one that is to be organized in collaboration with one of the regional networks and with active involvement of scholars from different networks, different GlobalX chapters. And your ideas can be sent to the GlobalX Secretariat. And I would also like to make an important announcement for the information of all. For certain technical reasons, the website address of GlobalX has been changed to globalxnetwork.org. No more globalx.org. It will be globalxnetwork.org. I think an email in this direction has already reached all of you. Okay, I'm just wanted to say one or two sentences about this book. It is very important. As you all know, this particular idea of producing this book and the COVID pandemic came at a particular juncture in the history wherein the developing countries have experimented with globalization for about 40 years. And these 40 years of globalization has undoubtedly on account of the generally agreed outcomes made globalization at the crossroads. Particularly important here that the GlobalX community acknowledges is the unacceptable inequality or growing divides that is, in our view, according to GlobalX perspective, because of the unequal access to knowledge. Because we believe that knowledge is the most important resource of the modern economy, and the knowledge divide is at the root of any development divide. And it is at this juncture that we also have experienced unprecedented, what is called a constellation of technological innovations in the realm of information communication technology, giving rise to what is called Industry 4.0. And the once in a century pandemic at that particular juncture, for we as GlobalX community made it evidently clear that the relevance of building learning innovation capabilities is of paramount importance. Only those who have the capabilities could get escaped from the clutches of the pandemic. And the book has, my colleague is going to highlight the details of the book. It has come up with a number of interesting ideas on which I'm sure in a broader context, the context of the thinking process, our chair and the founder of the GlobalX Network, Professor Benda Kilundwal, and the president of the network, Professor Erika Kramer Mebula will elaborate on. With once again, most warmly and a lot of affection, welcoming all of you for this meeting, I request Professor Benda Kilundwal and Professor Erika Kramer to chair this meeting and conduct the proceeding. Over to you, Professor Benda Kilundwal.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor. I have actually read the book and I'm quite impressed. I think KJ Joseph and Professor Lackwinder has made a great job in bringing together important contributions from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia, giving different perspectives on this terrible pandemic and what it implies for learning, innovation, and competence building systems. I also think that I would like to congratulate myself and Erika for our work with building GlobalX, because this book is quite unique in the sense that normally we scholars, we need a lot of time to reflect on new phenomena before we can write something down and publish something. Here, the GlobalX network, both in terms of its method of working and its research objective focus, has proven to be extremely effective and useful. This book comes quite soon after what happened, and we get here of a global challenge. We get different national and local perspectives, as well as reflections of what it means for the global economy. On the one hand, I think the different contributions show that learning, innovation, and competence building is key. It's crucial for coping with radical change in global conditions. On the other hand, many of the contributions from different parts of the world also show that institutional issues, governance issues at the local, national, and global level are extremely important. So I will stop with this, and I will ask Erika. Can I see you, Erika? Are you there?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Hi, Erika. Would you like to say a few words?
I can.
Before we give the word to the speakers.
That's great. Thank you so much, KJ and colleagues, for inviting us to chair this session. I think it's very exciting. The opportunity to have a discussion within GlobalX is always great, but also even more so to celebrate a research output like this one, a book that makes very, very important reflections on the global experience that we have all gone through the pandemic, where we have seen unprecedented innovation happening across very multiple domains. All countries had to put together very quick responses to a new reality. And it became very, very clear that innovation systems, robust innovation systems, played a very important role in issues around resilience and survival. And it's very important that you capture this in a volume, undertaking the innovation systems perspective and making an important contribution to the literature on innovation systems, but particularly highlighting examples from the global south, including cases from Brazil, from India, from Costa Rica, from Africa, which are often underrepresented in academic and policy discussions. So it is essential that these cases are captured in a volume like this. I think it provides a very unique perspective on how these regions have utilized and adapted to a situation of global crisis, particularly looking at the health innovation systems. And very importantly, I think what I liked about this book is that you highlight and you have looked at what communities and grassroots initiatives have done, which I think it's a very unique contribution from the Global South that can provide lessons to the rest of the world. And how governments have supported this very rapid technological adoption to address both medical and economic challenges. So really congratulations to all the authors, to the editors of this volume, for putting together something like this. It's quite a feat to develop a volume like this, especially as I suppose that this book was organized in the midst of the pandemic. So I'm sure that there was a lot of online interactions as the book was conceptualized and written and developed, which adds another layer of challenge for an international collaboration like this. So congratulations, and I'm looking forward to hearing the comments from do I give the floor back to KJ or to Lakhvinder, or should we continue with introducing the next speakers?
Lakhvinder will talk.
Great. I will hand over then to Professor Lakhvinder Singh from the Institute for Human Development in New Delhi to talk about the book.
Thank you very much, Erika. Good evening, Professor Lundwall, Professor Erika, Professor Conley, Professor Mammomucci, my dear friend, Dr. Aradhana Agarwal, participants, ladies and gentlemen. We are very happy to welcome you all in this particular session of launching the book, Reimagining Innovation System in the COVID and Post-COVID World, which is edited by Professor KJ Joseph and myself, and published by Routledge. Now, this book has a contributed volume, which is we have across the globe.
Sorry, Lakhwinder.
Yes.
Could you get this in presentation mode?
Oh.
The PowerPoint.
Okay, PowerPoint. Okay, presentation is fine now.
Thank you.
So now,
Yes, sir.
this book is a contributed volume of 23 scholars across the globe, except Australia. All continents are represented in this particular book. So this is a very wide spread of the contributors which have contributed to the experiences observed by those ones. And I'm happy to say that Professor Lundvall has a lead chapter in this book. And this book contains 17 chapters. So 17 chapters contributed by 23 scholars. Now, why this book has emerged? It is a COVID-19 shock. And you'll find that the dialogue of the GlobalX, IndiaLix community was happening at that particular period of time. Now, what shock did was a widespread and deep devastation of global governance institutions. One of the scholars, like Luc Soete, has argued that during pandemic, the beggar thy neighbor COVID policy was adopted, which has damaged the European values and restoration of the supremacy of the nation states and values has happened. So this was a reversal of the trend which has been observed by the scholar like Luc Soete. Similarly, the General Secretary of the United Nations also observed that the people we serve and represent may lose faith not only in their governments and institutions, but in the values that have animated the work of the United Nations for over 70 years. So that was the observation which pinched everybody across across the scholarly kind of lines. So therefore, you'll find that people were just talking about what has happened to the global governance system. Is it completely collapsed? We require a new system to be developed. That kind of debate which has started taking place. But one of the very important aspects which happens usually in the First World War and Second World War, the capital reorganization happens in a capitalist economic system when war is there. Now you'll find that this pandemic has substituted the war, the World War, and you'll find that this has allowed quietly the reorganization of the global capital and the penetration of new technologies which were registered and relatively moving at a very slow pace. Those has been penetrated extremely fast rate, and you'll find that workplace and all challenges quietly you will find has happened and accepted across. So therefore, what emerged out of it? Rise of techno monopolies, and during this pandemic, suppression of democratic rights by the state, and there was a tectonic shift of public policy has happened towards allowing the tech monopolies to cover the space of the markets and all that. So the dialogue emerged, the new globe, what will happen to new global economic order, social as well as political. So you'll find that it was expected that something new should, if the old collapses, the new should happen and new should emerge. So that was the kind of dialogue which was happening. So GlobalX and IndiaLix community initiated a dialogue to comprehend the direction of so-called change in the global system. And therefore, you'll find that conference was organized between 12 to 14 October 2021, which KJ Joseph has already talked to us, and emergence of this book from that kind of dialogue which has happened. Whether we have achieved what expected to happen to be achieved, but you'll find that time will tell that how valuable this book is going to be. Now, this book is organized into 3 different subheads. The first one is challenges to innovation system in uncertain times. This is a global perspective. 4 chapters are contributing and providing the information to the readers. What are the challenges posed by COVID shock, and simultaneously proposed measures to prevent such shocks to occur in the foreseeable future. The challenge was global governance and historically uneven development of technologies and innovation systems usually direct the change in the global leadership to happen. Currently, the struggle is going on between China and USA in terms of supremacy, and that has devastated and you'll find emergence of war in some of the corners in the globe. So monopolized technologies aiming to substitute for human intelligence requires rethinking both in innovation theory and public policy. I think most important challenge today, which we have been facing, and this book is trying to address, is that the new technologies are going beyond the kind of thinking which earlier we had about the competition building and competitiveness as well as the innovation system. Now you have a very serious kind of issue because the human intelligence is expected to be and is already devastated. So innovation scholars has to rethink about the economic and the innovation theory as well as policy. A balanced and sustainable development challenge is to maintain a right kind of balance between 4 pillars, that is material development, environment, access to health, and socioeconomic equality. So if society is or the global economy is expected to sustain, the 4 pillars need to be balanced and interlinked to sustain over a future period of time. So challenges are interconnected. Knowledge and capabilities to respond to the external shocks, organizations and interactions to address social challenges, capacity to design and implement science and technology policies, and global connectivity for coordination between public and private sectors. To develop socio-institutional innovations and capacity building in a public organization to prevent future shocks. So that is the kind of global challenges innovation system has been facing in uncertain times. The next section contributes to response of the innovation system to the COVID-19 crisis. That contains 5 chapters assessing the direction of innovations which is going on. And you'll find that due to shock, the responses which has been given by the various nations over a period of time. So COVID-19 shock activated national governments and national governments based on existing capabilities, devising emergency measures while harnessing the social and institutional innovations from national, regional, and sectoral innovation systems. This has led to the emergence of integrated sub-sectoral innovation systems that has come into the rescue of swift production of technological solutions to face COVID-19 crisis. The monopoly rights over capabilities to discover vaccines, production capacity, and distribution due to intellectual property rights regime increased the cost of vaccine as well as promoted hoarding of vaccine instead of saving the humanity. This has led to profitability as well as neighbor the COVID policy, where you'll find me first kind of thing which happened even among the nation states. So systematic development of sequence of new scientific innovations that allowed COVID infection to be contained from its spread, wide differentials of have and have nots of scientific capabilities emerged on the scene. Those who have and those have not, you'll find that they are on the receiving ends, and dependencies has been generated, and they were looking into that whether we will be able to save our population or not. So the innovative firms faced COVID shock very easily, and their sales and profitability was rising, but non-innovative firms faced decline in terms of the sales as well as the revenue. The next section, critical perspective on innovation policy in the COVID-19 crisis. This is the experiences of various countries in the world. Some of the countries which are represented in this particular kind of volume gives us some kind of idea what has happened and how state has even encroached upon the democratic rights of the people. And in the various countries of the world, you will find that people have tried to resist that curbing of the democratic rights. So the 6 chapters covering the country experiences of the state intervention in the respective countries, the usual experience which emerged from across the studies is increasing role of markets and withdrawal of the state in both COVID and post-COVID scenario. This is basically the reorganization of the capital has happened, and the monopoly capital have asserted supremacy over the state. And therefore, you'll find that this is a worrisome feature required to be focused more in the future studies as well to understand what has actually happened. So reversal in terms of taking measure to save the life of the citizens, extreme form of intervention of the state, and curtailment of freedom of the citizens. And you will find that some of the country heads were saying that you have to beat the drums. The experience of Germany, India, and several other countries are the evidence of the kind of curbing of the democratic rights of the citizens which has happened. The emergence of inequities, but experience of change in short-term behavior of the humans can be used for attaining a long-term goal of sustainability. I think that the people have moved in a short period of time to change their behavior, and you'll find that the pause of production system has given us some kind of breathing space, and clean air and sustainability measures are expected to happen. But as soon as COVID emergency declared over, you'll find that it was returning back to the same kind of older thinking, and the environmental reports are stating that we have returned much higher compared to where we were prior to COVID 2019. So new development models are expected to be developed and has been placed by various writers in this book. They are talking about that let us place in the new models of development that life, well-being, and essential public services for sustainability as first objective, and COVID-19 crisis and the resultant disaster which has happened in most of the states like Brazil. The Costa Rica case study show that lack of capability to produce vaccine and dependency for vaccines on other countries delayed slowing infection and loss of human life. This is also case of most of the African countries as well as some of the South Asian countries except India. Tourism economy affected adversely due to prolonged restrictions and other sectors due to contagion effect. So that does mean that health sector, COVID sector has, affected other sectors, and tourism economy when collapsed, then you will find that other sectors are also affected. Most important aspect here to be highlighted is contradiction in the self-reliant policy. Usually these, most of these states like India, talking about that we are going to now shift towards the self-reliant policy. That means we are not honoring the kind of globalization taking place, but we are moving toward this. But actually what has happened, the science and technology import substitution policy served the global and local monopoly. And then you'll find that people were ignored. So therefore, it was science and technology for monopoly capital versus state policy for basic needs is the fundamental question that emerges from this. Science and technology enclave type capabilities, which rest in the South Africa, could not be used due to existing inequities and vicious cycles which are existing there. So that means even existing capacities, some of the countries were not able to harness to alleviate this COVID-19 crisis because of the high degree of inequities as well as vicious cycles that is existing. Kenya showed from fintech application of digital technologies help to achieve inclusion during the COVID period as well as in the post-COVID period. So need for a global, the challenges which this book throws finally is need for a global innovation system to overcome the emerging global challenges and reforming global institutional architecture, which is expected to take care of the fundamental needs and developing global public goods to sustain whenever the crisis occurs. So reincarnation, the role of the nation state for capability building, for addressing the concerns of inclusion and sustainability, for dreaming a better world to live. Now, thank you very much. And the credit of this book goes to contributors and Routledge for fast-tracking the publication. Both deserve a big applause from the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lakwinder. I would just like to tell Erika that we decided the order of the speakers coming next. Aradhna first, and then Mamu, and finally Con Lee. And as I understand it, each of you have about 15 minutes to comment on the book. And I think, would you like to add something, Erika, or should we just ask Aradhna to start? Before I do that, I should ask everybody who is not speaking to mute their microphone. I think Vikram, for instance, has his microphone open. Is that correct? Okay. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, okay? Erika, do you want to add something?
No substantial comment from my side. I just wanted to ask if we are taking comments or questions or thoughts for people to write them in the chat, and perhaps at a later stage there would be a possibility to engage with the audience. Is that a possibility, Bentoke?
I think that KJ, he just did like this, and I assume it means that we could do that.
Erika
Yes.
always comes with wonderful ideas.
Sorry?
Erika always comes with wonderful ideas.
Good. So, Erika, will you keep track of the chat? to see if good. Okay, Aradhana Agarwal, I'm very much looking forward to hear your presentation. Could you make your slides in so? That's perfect. So please, the floor is yours.
So, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Lakhvinder for this opportunity. And I would like to congratulate KJ Joseph and Lakhvinder and all the authors of this book for compiling such a valuable and timely and comprehensive volume on national innovation systems from the perspective of COVID and post-COVID world.
Maybe, Aradhana, may we see you with your
Sure.
video
Okay.
while you speak?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, actually, this book has 17 chapters, and it was a very daunting task to begin with, to read all of them. But eventually, I ended up reading all of them. And I actually prepared a sort of summary of what I learned from this, and then how I see the book. And then I have some reflections on them. I have a kind of a difficult job, actually, to offer some critical perspective on the book as well. So let me start with this presentation. So the presentation actually is in two parts. First part is about the book as I see it, and then my reflections, my observations on the book. Well, the book is about, it actually has addressed several issues like how COVID has aggravated the global challenges of inequality, unemployment, monopolization of technology by a few transnations and corporations, how technology has the key role in addressing these challenges, how material well-being is decoupled from human and environmental well-being, how the technology divide has been at the core of variation in recovery, and how technology divide is reinforced by the global innovations, global governance systems. It also talks about the technology divide and how it is detrimental to the catch-up process by developing countries. Finally, it also talks about how institutions matter in responding to the shocks and how the state can play an important role in strengthening the innovation systems. Well, actually, I would like to reorganize 17 chapters into two broad parts instead of three, according to the focus of this study. Well, the first part, as I see it, is the challenges posed by COVID to global economy and the innovation systems. It covers three broad subtopics. One is the role of technology, learning, and innovation in the backdrop of global challenges posed by COVID. The second subpart, I would say, is technology divide and outcomes of COVID-19 and need for sustainable innovation systems. So these are the three broad parts. There's three broad subtopics that part one covers. When I come to part two, then I actually put all those country experiences in that part. So Germany, Brazil, South Africa, India, Kenya, and Costa Rica. So these are the six countries, but 7 chapters, because for India, we have dedicated 2 chapters, and I will come to how they can be differentiated. So this is how I look at the book. Now, to begin with, let's start with the first subtopic of part 1. Here, I think Lundvall has done a very good job by setting the tone for the discussion. He rightly points out that COVID has accentuated the tendencies that actually had emerged before the pandemic. So it's not all about pandemic. It was the kind of accentuation of those tendencies which happened because of yet one more shock. And this was the COVID. So rising inequalities, slowing down of GVCs, digitization, increasing monopolization of technologies, all these tendencies were actually becoming more prominent after this health shock. And this the first time actually they appeared after the financial crisis of 2008, but then they continued, and this next shock actually made them very severe. So according to him, developing countries need to invest in knowledge and build stronger innovation systems if they really want to avoid technological dependence on the North. Now, this is something which is very important and something which I am also propagating through my own research, which is not focusing entirely on innovation system, but trade and investment. Countries should move beyond national to global innovation systems. Then there is a second chapter, which actually again re-emphasizes it is by Claudia. She re-emphasizes the role of technology, knowledge, and learning, and she focuses on the implementation part. And she elaborates on 4 elements: state capacities, set of organization and their interactions, SIT policies, and global connectivity and coordination between public and private organization. And she has elaborated upon them. Swati and Lakhvinder both have focused on Asia, and they have highlighted the importance of building a strong innovation systems in Asian economies. And they talked about this cooperation between Asian economies, but then they talked about the challenges that wide disparities in the development levels and in these systems at national level can affect this kind of effort. The key message that I gather from this subtopic is that technology is the key to development in not only national innovation systems, but the need is also to build global systems. Then we come to the second part of it, which is technology divide and outcomes of COVID-19. And here we have 3 studies, and they are at different levels: continent level, national level, and firm level. At the continent level, we have Rasigan, who actually narrates how vaccine supply affected COVID response in Africa and how IPR system played its role in what he calls as vaccine apartheid. He argues that there is a dire need to address this kind of system, IPR systems, and to incorporate moral responsibilities of saving human communities. At the national level, we find the study by KJ Joseph and Kiran Kumar. They have divided the countries into 2 blocks with their response, with their return to the pre-pandemic position. And they have shown how countries with relative vibrant innovation systems have been able to revert to the pre-pandemic position, whereas the others with weak learning and innovation systems lag much behind. So this is the lesson that they give us by looking at the country level analysis. Then at the firm level, we have the paper by Nandita Matthew and George Pelly. And they find that the firms that have been innovating, they have suffered less decline in sales as compared with those firms that have not been innovating. So I think these are some very important empirical evidence, and they all reiterate how technological catch-up is critical for addressing the shock generated by these various shocks. In this effort, the global governance should also incorporate development agenda. So these are the key messages that we get. And then we come to the third part, which talks about the need for inclusive and sustainable innovation systems. And here we have this paper by Raja Rasaiya, a very interesting paper in which he has shown how the 4 pillars in innovation, which Lakhvinder has also talked about, they need to be balanced. And he has shown how material well-being is disconnected with the COVID outcomes, and how material well-being is disconnected from or decoupled from health, social well-being, and environmental well-being. So it is very important that we actually have a sort of balance between all these 4 pillars if we really want to achieve the objectives. Material well-being alone is not sufficient. So that is a kind of message that he is trying to give. Sujit Bhattacharya, actually, I find his paper very interesting, where he is highlighting the positivity that happened during COVID. And he has shown how to fight a pandemic. There had been this collective response, local networks, frugal innovations, informal sector innovations, open sharing. So there are explorations of new pathways, new novel public-private partnerships. So he highlights how COVID has created all those positive tendencies. And he actually talks about that these innovative solutions have emerged from low and middle income countries, despite the fact that they don't have structural capacities of their innovation systems. and they are facing institutional and resource constraint. So according to him, again, there is need to really have a sort of balance and to bring development, inclusiveness, and equity in the economic model. So both these studies actually have approached through different ways to show how it is important to have inclusive growth if we really want to achieve the objectives and the kind of address the global challenges. Part 2 is talking about the responses to COVID and the critical perspective on innovation policies. So here we have 6 contributions, contributions from 6 countries, and they provide critical perspective on the innovation policies that have been initiated to contain and mitigate COVID-19. So here, actually, it's a very interesting mix. We have Germany, which is a developed country, OECD country. We have India, Brazil, and South Africa, which are BRICS countries. Then we have 2 small countries, Costa Rica and Kenya. But the difference is that Costa Rica is an upper middle income country, where Kenya is a lower middle income country. The countries are from 4 continents. These are Latin America, Africa, Asia, and Europe. So what we find is that because Germany had a very well-developed health system, they could really overcome the kind of challenge that was posed by COVID waves. However, there were some social and political dynamics, including the behavioral change due to work from home and changes in the supply chain to address the economic slowdown. There were these social and political dynamics affected the narratives, and these narratives are around supply chains to address economic slowdown, funding of climate change, exposure to hidden socio-economic inequalities, and this led to sort of a kind of disparate narratives, and there were pressures on policymakers, which really posed a problem for policymakers on which way to go and how to really address these issues, different issues, because there were different views from different sections. Then we have BRICS countries. BRICS countries actually have a very varied experiences, and we have 2 upper middle income countries here, South is Africa and Brazil. And here we find that South Africa is the most unequal country. This is what the author admits. And but at the same time, it has very well-developed health innovation systems. Now, despite having well-developed health innovation systems, the general S&T capacities are weak. Institutional capacity of the state in delivering services is weak. This led to misappropriation, and political tensions started brewing up that fueled social unrest and economic crisis. So he actually highlighted how there is need to strengthen state capabilities and institutions to really have a kind of long-term development of innovation paradigm, which is sustainable and virtuous. Brazil has a very interesting kind of reaction to this, and in the sense that according to the author, there is neglect of essential public services like education, health, sanitation, environment, which added to the severity of crisis. There were denialist and diversionist attitudes of the federal government that actually affected the entire outcome. The consequences were serious and lethal, and that led to policy paralysis and perplexity. So what he talked about was, again, the conclusion is the same, that there is need for the strengthening of the essential services, the state capabilities, and coordinated and participatory policies. India, which is a lower middle income country, actually has a very interesting experience. And here in this volume, we have 2 studies on India. Sachin Chaturvedi, Amit Kumar, and Sabyasachi Saha, they have actually shown how the government responded to COVID, how the innovation systems were integrated. So they have shown how sectoral innovation systems were integrated with NIS to successfully address the challenges. And they actually have articulated the framework of integrated innovation systems that highlights the integration between innovation systems at different levels. Now, there's another paper on India where Dinesh Abrol actually focuses on post-COVID course of development. And here he talks about the self-reliance, the path of self-reliance that the government has adopted. But he is quite critical of the government's approach towards self-reliance. And he talks of more horizontal policies, and he talks of networks, indigenous clusters, and then the technology effort intensive like environment to harness the opportunities arising out of the spillover connected with GBCs. I think this is a very important point which I will be taking up next when I come to my observations on this. Costa Rica and Kenya, these are two small countries. They are two very different countries in the sense that Costa Rica is an upper middle income country. It has very well developed education and health systems. Now, this is something important, but yet their innovation systems the innovation systems are underdeveloped. And this is where the authors say that there has to be there is a need for a greater understanding of the systems of national innovations, and there has to be active coordination of policies between the entities involved and greater capacity to evaluate the whole system. So merely, again, only if you are addressing only one part of the system, it is not really, giving the results which are desirable. Kenya is talking about, Kenyan contribution is talking about the innovations in fintech. And as Lakhvinder also said, that fintech actually became a kind of big factor that ensured the supply of essential services to marginalized groups during this. And the volume of these transactions increased by 15% almost. But then the author is worried about the M-Pesa enabled services, which according to him were affected adversely, affecting the loan facilities, credit facilities, and savings. So here the authors argue that the government again have a very crucial role to play. And this role is to ensure that there is technology and financial inclusion. The security of technological innovation is very important, and there has to be expansion of inclusive digital system and digital technologies and financial inclusion. So yes, fintech has affected, but then the governments really have to see how to carry them forward so that they become and they serve the purpose, the overall purpose of serving the marginalized group in the country. So overall, this part actually I find very interesting because of these various examples and various case studies and how different institutions behave differently and how the state role in coordinating them emerged as a very important factor in the whole process. So this part highlights the importance of state capabilities, political power dynamics, leadership, level of development, social and economic institutions in shaping innovation systems and innovation actors. Now, there are 5 key messages from this, which I gathered. So first is that reimagine your global governance architecture with a focus on development agenda. Now, this is something that we have been talking about a lot. Strengthen in national innovation systems by adopting a comprehensive and integrated approach, promote global innovation systems, strike a balance between the role of the state and the markets with a greater understanding of the multiple roles and capacity that the state can play in driving innovation systems. Incorporate the goal of inclusion and sustainability for the well-being of humanity. So I think these are the 5 major lessons that we draw. Now, some of my reflections on this book are that what is the value of the book, first of all? So as a scholar who has been writing on technology innovation, and I must say that I started reading Lundvall a lot when I did my PhD and KJ Joseph. So I learned from them a lot to begin with as I started my research in this area. So, and I've been following this, even though I have the focus on trade and in international investments. what I feel is that much has been written already on the role of technology, innovation systems at macro, meso, micro, and even global levels. So there is a lot of literature. Most authors are well-known scholars in this area. And I have been reading their work. Many of these prescriptions have already been made, and they are repeatedly being made. So what is the kind of contribution? That's a question. So what sets this book apart? So what I personally feel, these are my views here, that it is this book, the value of this book lies in reasserting the importance of technology and innovation systems in the backdrop of the COVID shock. Now, they have integrated different perspectives and multiple levels of analysis to present a very comprehensive view of how, in this backdrop of the health shock, innovation systems are so important. They have described how COVID-19 view of the global challenges and how different countries reacted to this and how they faced challenges in their response, and prescribed how the innovation policies need to be strengthened to face such shocks. So I think this is where the value lies, that they have actually tried to present a very comprehensive view, and they have taken COVID-19 as the backdrop. So that is where, it is very important. Another thing that I felt was that analytical approach adopted throughout the book is data intensive, but it is not quantitative. It is very descriptive, which makes the book easy to read and grasp. And as I told you, I read all 17 chapters in 3 days. So that shows that how much interesting it was, and I couldn't really put it aside. So but still, as a reviewer, I have a few more observations that I would like to make here. First of all, we must understand that the growth mechanisms in this world have changed, and they have implications for the innovation systems. Now, in this contemporary world, countries are not growing organically. The way the now developed countries have grown, the growth is coming. The major growth mechanism is, or the channel is the integration or participation into global value chains. Now, these global value chains, they promote trade and inflows of foreign investment. And it is believed that it is this foreign direct investment is accompanied by new technologies, which will have technology spillover effects and will lead to technology transfer. This is the whole idea of growth at the moment. So there is acceleration in the growth rate because of participation in global value chains. But this has led to specialization in trade and investment in GVC-linked sectors. And this has created a resource curse-like situation in those sectors which are not inserted into the GVCs. In my book, which has also recently been launched, I have elaborated on how how this growth process is totally distorted, and growth is not really following the normal pattern that historically we have seen, and how this distorted patterns need the innovation systems still more. Governments want quick results of their policies, and they go for quick fixes. So in that context, what they have, they are adopting some short-term policies. And what are these policies? They are focusing on attracting FDI for growth. And the logic is that FDI will lead to technology transfers. That is the kind of underlying assumption. So what they have done to attract FDI, their focus is on attracting FDI. So at the moment, what is the problem? Most countries have adopted infrastructure-led growth. They want to create good infrastructure to attract foreign investors and other investors into GVCs. So there is proliferation of economic corridors, and these corridors are not only national corridors, but also international corridors. Creation of special economic zones. Many countries have got into the debt trap, and they are into heavy lending for physical infrastructure. On the other hand, what we find is that technology and education, these are getting neglected because money is diverted from these key areas to infrastructure development. Much has been written about Southeast Asian countries, but my experience and my studies show that Southeast Asian countries are actually continuously dependent on foreign direct investment and then continuously spending a lot of money on infrastructure to attract them and competing for that with each other. So it is important to highlight that the NIS should be aligned with the opportunities presented by GVCs first, because most of these technologies are supposed to flow into GVCs and they are being attracted through GVCs. So first conclusion that I draw upon this analysis is that there has to be alignment of national innovation systems with the opportunities presented by GVCs. FDI and technology transfers are critical components of NIS, which we cannot forget. Dinesh Abral has touched upon this, but I think it needs to be brought into the mainstream arguments. Then we find that the second conclusion that I see from this analysis is that there is a warning served by these various shocks. And this warning is to incorporate technological catch-up as a goal and not the income catch-up as the development goal. Most countries today are looking at income catch-up, but in this process, they are forgetting that it is important to have technological catch-up. Then my next reflection is on global innovation systems in Europe. After having spent some time in Europe, I know that, and I have been a part of their programs. I think we have to draw upon the experiences of the European Council's Horizon program. It's a very good example. This entire program is promoting transnational R&D collaborations between research and academic institutions within the EU through funding. Massive funding is going into these programs. Horizon 2020 was the 8th such program, and this covered the period from 2014 to 21. During this period, 80 billion euros were spent on these collaborative research programs. Massive funding. And this actually has promoted a lot of collaborations within Europe of various institutions. Now, this program is succeeded by Horizon Europe, which is the largest collaboration program on innovation in the world, with 95.5 billion euros funding available over the period of 5-6 years. So I think it is very important to reflect upon this experience and see how can we draw important lessons from the success of this program? How can it be adapted? Because there are issues here. Can this, the question is, but can this be adapted considering the kind of institutionalization of regionalism? So, but can something of this sort be adapted in various regional contexts? In fact, for Southeast Asia, I have written how we can really adapt this system into the context of regionalism in Southeast Asia. Then we find that much has been written about sustainability and inclusive growth, but then we actually have missed Nordic countries' experience, because Nordic countries are known to be the region. The Nordic region is known to be the region that has promoted, that is known for sustainable development. Without any doubt. There are 5 Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, which are top ranked in Sustainable Development Index. Norway is 7th, while Iceland is 29. So these are the countries which are following this highly sustainable development path. Most of these countries are resource intensive, and yet they have developed their competitiveness so much that they are top ranked in competitiveness index. And even in Global Innovation Index, we find that most of these countries are within 10 and 20 rankings. So I think that it will be very interesting to see how they have performed during COVID, and how these various arguments can be strengthened by looking at the example of these countries. So to conclude, I think I haven't taken much time. To conclude, this volume is a welcome addition to the literature. In view of the recurring shocks due to geopolitical reasons, political reasons, financial reasons, health reasons, it is high time for the developing countries to seriously work on the STI policy and trans-border collaborations. So even if they are into GVCs, I'll come to that, they have to really see how to strengthen their own systems and maximize the opportunities from global value chains. The book is not meant to provide solutions. This is how they have brought suggestions though. But the papers bring out the role of technology and other institutional, social and political dynamics, institutional dynamics into the play and present argument to promote innovation systems. I think that there is need to highlight that innovation system should be aligned to GVC's requirement. I just want to give a small example of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is doing very well, and many people say that it is the new tiger. This is what actually is promoted, but now we know that they are in a bad situation because 85% of their trade actually is constituted by a single commodity, and that is the ready-made apparel. Now, despite this kind of success in one sector, they could not really create innovation systems to promote some of the industries which are complementary to this, or which could actually contribute. For instance, swing machine, they actually purchase all their swing machine from China. So I think those things, to understand how there are complementarities, what is required and how innovation systems can be promoted, keeping that requirement into view. That is very important. This is what actually I have been trying to say. And I think the book can also be enriched by some more real world case studies to strengthen the arguments, to highlight the success of some countries from the perspective of NIS. And here actually I stop. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. I almost envy your students. Your capacity to structure complex issues is quite extraordinary. They must learn a lot from your lecturing. I'm of course slightly tempted to get involved in some of your last questions, because we actually have done work on how to connect the global value chain with the national innovation system perspectives. And also I have, until at least 2000, I was focused mainly on Nordic countries systems. So it would have been interesting to go into depth in a discussion on these things, but I will ask Erika, do you want to say something before we move on to the next, to Mamo?
No, perhaps if I'm allowed, I mean, I think it's it's been a great presentation. Thank you so much, Aradhna, for a very good synthesis, and also adding your own views on the book, which I think it was very useful. Something that connects with one of the comments that is actually been on in the chat as well, which is something that I was thinking as well as I was listening to the presentation, is that we have all these lessons that have led, we have all of these experiences that have led to a lot of sort of temporary responses to a global disruption, ways of thinking and acting in a particular way. However, it raises this critical question on how can this be maintained in a post-crisis, pandemic crisis. We have other types of crisis world, and what sort of systemic changes are necessary to sort of support a more sustained approach to policy learning, and how to ensure that these insights that have emerged from this experience are translated into long-term policy making that sustains sort of the kind of science, technology, and innovation system that is not only responsive in a time of crisis, but also continuously evolving to meet future challenges. It is obviously a very big question, but it's been also posted in the chat, something similar by Andrew, and I perhaps, Aradhana, if you could reflect on something like that. In the chat, Andrew posed the question of, I understand from previous discussions that in many national settings, there was a realization by the public authorities of their endogenous STI capabilities to meet the challenges. And in subsequent years, has this realization led to a greater public sector support for strengthening STI capabilities to address national problems and greater social inclusion and sustainability? In a way, I think that also speaks to the sort of the sustained, or how has this translated into policy learning and sustained efforts? Sorry for the long comment.
Was it a question to Aradhana?
It was, yes. It was. If she can sort of reflect on that briefly, based on having read all the volume, and sort of to what extent do these experiences provide insights for the future?
Aradhana.
Well, thank you for this question. But I think that this is a very difficult question to answer. Yes, there was a sort of momentum when there was a health shock. But eventually, I think that, and there was a learning also by public authorities, but there are several caveats, when we really come to the implementations in the long term. One is the state capability. Second is technology is a long-term route, whereas most governments are interested into short-term solutions. And so they actually focus on short-term ways of really promoting the economy, because the focus is on employment generation, focus is on national income, on per capita income. So I think it is very important to keep asserting and to make presentations to the policymakers to really let them know that how technology needs to be, is the kind of key for all growth or development related issues, and how this technology has made all the difference. India and China were at the top at one point in time. When the Industrial Revolution came, it was the rise of the West. And it was all because of the technological revolution. I actually very well know about the rise of the Nordic countries, how it was based on technology. So I think, I don't really know. I'm very pessimistic, I must say, about this thing. And I think that it is something which, like China. China is one country that actually is trying to overcome that kind of technology divide, and the conviction with which they are doing, the kind of money they are investing, the kind of comprehensive approach they have adopted. I think that actually needs to be emulated. When I'm working on special economic zones, so what people look at is only the special economic zone. That is the infrastructure part. They don't look at it, how they actually have got this foreign direct investment, and how they have tried to have those spillover effects and technology learning actually. So that part is most of the time missed. The only part is how to create attractive special economic zones for global value chains. So, it is I think I don't have any answer how to really sustain this, but I am a bit pessimist about it. And as the countries grow, I think there will be realization. After China, I think India is also putting in a lot of efforts in this, and there are other countries. But I still think that, the technology divide is so wide that perhaps it is very daunting for the developing countries.
Okay. I think that we are going to move on. Time is passing, and Mamu is not connected just now. Somebody told me, so I proposed. I hope Kun Lee, are you there? I think you go now. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, he is. Good.
Where is Mamu?
Please. I think Mamu is temporarily disconnected. I think he will come back.
Okay, great. Okay, I think
So the floor is yours.
Okay, it's great. We are having a exciting conversation, prompted by diverse view today, and I sense that one view from the book is that somewhat pessimistic warning against the post-pandemic consequences, such as rising inequalities and more divide brought in by the pandemic. Okay, but we also think about some opportunity side or promising side. If I mention a couple of them first, the state has come back. In other words, in replacing the neoliberal order. In other words, we are now entering deglobalization era, which means, in essence, more role by government or state or even industrial policies, innovation policies. Okay, so in the sense, it's a good change of the atmosphere, attitude. Second, now we are given more police spaces to try whatever we want, rather than restricted by the free market magic idea of in the past. Okay? Also, the pandemic was a warning against too much fragmented GVC. In other words, we have too many the factories in different part of the world. We are subject to more risk. That means also needed to seek new mode of development, relying on more domestically available resources. Okay. So that means Global South can try to utilize some resources in their own country to make it more high value and export-oriented, and using that as a new engine of growth. So I think these are the possible suggestions or opportunity side emerging post-pandemic period. Then I'm somewhat surprised to see the chapter by Danish, the Abrol about. I heard from this today. He somewhat criticized self-reliance, but more promoted GVC engagement. Well, I don't know. I thought that, as I mentioned, this post-pandemic world is calling for need to reconsider more domestically available resource-based development, which is somewhat close to self-reliance mode, rather than keep relying on GVCs. So I think this might be issue. To what extent we should be open to GVC, and to what extent we have to try to build up more domestic value chains. I think this is one key issue in our long-time debate between innovation system versus GVC literatures. Okay, that's why I mentioned the idea of we got to join GVC, but we got to build more domestic value chain, which means less GVC. Have to build up your domestic resources capable to can join GVC again. So this in out in this non-linear pattern rather than linear pattern, which means the more GVC the better. I don't believe in this the naive view of linear approach to GVC. Okay, so and this is right time, the post-pandemic period, right time to have a different view on other than this linear view of GVC. Okay, in other words, more dynamic view or non-linear views. Okay, so in that regard, I have a somewhat different view. Maybe the view suggested by Aradan about the importance of GVC or importance of FDI. Okay? FDI is good. We have to invite FDI to learn, but it's only beginning. FDI is not end. It's only beginning to build up our own capability after learning from FDI. So we should rather emphasize domestic value chain, locally owned companies rather than FDI. FDI is only means. Okay. Now people are increasingly aware of the limitation of FDI-driven growth. It's already proven not so effective in the long term. Only short-term solutions. Okay. 근데 내가 나도 emphasize a lot of the domestic-owned companies and domestic-owned big business, not only the startups. Without big business, your startup will be all acquired by foreign companies. Google is another way of brain drain. You should have a domestically lead to the big businesses. Okay, so that's my observation. Also, I need more explanation about this emphasis of technical catch-up rather than income catch-up. We need more discussion because I thought that income catch-up is final goal, and there are many ways to achieve that. And technology only one of them, I think. There are many non-R&D based catching up and growth. Yeah. So I don't know what's other people's view on these issues. Yeah. Let me stop here. Is Mamu is back or not? I know Dennis is critical mode itself, not the self-reliance.
Is Mamu back, or do you know, KJ?
Mamo mailed it to me saying that there was some network problem, so that he is not able to be with us.
Okay. If this is the case, I might add a few words to the presentation by Aradhana. I think that what would be perhaps, at least, I mean, you gave some example from European research programs, and you referred to the experience of Nordic countries. I think in a sense, as you mentioned, it might be at least as interesting to look at some historical examples of more recent character where countries like China has combined the kind of openness to global value chain and foreign direct investment with extremely ambitious accumulation of knowledge through R&D efforts, through education and training, and building different types of infrastructure. I think that when we worked with colleagues on global value chain and innovation systems, I think there was some kind of convergence in the direction saying that opening up without strengthening local capabilities had very limited and perhaps even sometimes negative impact. And I think in a sense, in relation to the European experience, Europe turned out not to be a very progressive companion to the global South when it came to COVID-19. Actually, Europe was more negative to sharing knowledge on vaccine patents, etc., than United States. And I think that my conclusion after having worked a lot with the European Union and at the OECD and other Western organizations is that the global South cannot wait to get any kind of gifts or sustainable, useful help from that direction. And therefore, I think we should, at Global X level, think about how the global north can self-organize and try to develop collaboration of different kind, including collaboration to change fundamental global institution and the global, actually the world economic order. Of course, this is not a simple thing to do, but I think in the long run, we will need that kind of quite radical change if we want to be able to cope with the different challenges as we have. I would like to add one more thing, which makes it even much more complex. I don't think we mentioned it in the book, but I think that COVID reminded us that nature is alive, and sometimes it strikes back. And I think one issue is how to promote knowledge-based economic and social development with full respect for nature. I think this is of course making what is already extremely complex, where we think about social sustainability, etc., even more complex. But I think we need to start thinking in these terms if we should avoid some kind of world catastrophes which are even worse than the one we saw from COVID. But that were some reflections, and I would invite Aradhana. Erika, you want to? I took my chair position to say something. Do you want to do the same?
Thanks, Bentoke. I think there are so many interesting people in the audience that that it would be really good to hear from some of them.
Yes.
And perhaps I mean, I can come back later with some final reflections and so on. That this discussion is triggering a lot of thoughts, but I see already some comments in the chat. There are a couple of comments around the book's treatment of micro, small, and medium enterprises and their capacity for technology adoption. And there's also another response from Dinesh to issues that have been coming up around self-reliance strategies and self-reliance more generally, and insertion in global value chains. So I think it would be great to maybe hear from the audience.
Sure.
What do you think?
Erika, I propose you take the chair now and organize the discussion around until we get Mamo aboard again. Okay?
Great. Thank
Abrol,
you.
please speak up. Abrol, please speak up. I'd like to hear your view.
Sorry?
Abrol, please speak up.
Yeah,
Abrol.
I will. With permission from Bal as well as Erika, I have mentioned already the sense of what I can elaborate in my chat, so I don't want to take too much time, and I think everybody should be brief, and I too will be. One is that I'm very much for self-reliance, and I'm for the collective self-reliance of Global South. Okay, this was a strategy that India, which is known as the Bandung strategy, the Panchsheel strategy, and people know it, the new economic order that was in the post-colonial period sought. One can elaborate, I don't want to get into, is a subject in itself, what we have learned from that particular experience. Point number one. Point number two, I am not at all arguing for insertion into global value chains, not at all. I'm not, as far as spillovers are concerned, they can be maximized only through independent innovation. That is what the Chinese experience shows. Point number two. And I've just now sent 5 articles of mine to everybody, among the presenters at least, and I'll share it with everybody later. In Kyon, you can look at that. What I think of the geopolitical developments, the shifts which have taken place, the technologies that we need to master, how do we master? And that is essentially through national and global collective self-reliance of the South, and even the poor and marginalized of the North. And I think the big business, the big tech needs an alternative set of institutions in terms of variety of forms are possible. This is not the occasion to actually develop that particular idea, how one can do that as far as it's concerned. But it is very, very true. Big tech only creates divides. Big tech creates inequality. They are doing rent seeking. And there's a huge amount of drain taking place from the global South. And both Bal as well as collaborator Cecilia Recap have done a very good job with regard to the analysis that they have done already of the big tech and big business as far as it's concerned. We can, and I have my recent articles are bringing out the Indian story, because I'm not familiar with every part of the world, including Europe, but I know Europe started GlobalX, and the BAL started with the idea that the small countries do need to cooperate with each other. And I think whether it's the European experiment or the Indian experiment or the African experiment, they need to be taken forward. And that's part of the collective self-reliance, I would say, rather than becoming extractive, rather than doing rent seeking. And I think that's the way forward for even global innovation systems. There is a North-South cooperation agenda, but that has to be taken up separately. I cannot take it up separately. I'll close my idea here for the time being. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dinesh. Kyun, I know that you had some comments directly to Dinesh. Are you happy with the response? Do you want to engage a bit more, or can we move to the next?
I'm fine, because I found that me and Abrol has in the same page in the role of the limited role of GBC. But if you don't have a domestically strong company, you'll be exploited by foreign MNCs. That's why I emphasize locally owned companies, whether it's small or big. Yeah.
That's a very important point, Kyun. I listened to you when you came to India recently. He was with us in the Institute for Studies in Industrial Development. I could not be physically present because I had already committed to some alternate program. But I heard the recording, and Kyun has presented to us the different pathways, etc. And I'd like to make only one point in the current context. That's the role of essential needs, which COVID has shown us. The basic needs. And I think in the pathways, and if we want a self-reliant pathway, the role of essential and non-essential needs to be distinguished. And I think that's a very important point. And I'm going to engage with Kyun Lee on his book through this particular lens of essential and non-essential, because the post-independent Indian history shows how the essential needs and the essential intervention made a difference from 1950 to 1980. And I think that will probably add to the discourse that Kyun is building up on the pathways to catch up. And I think pathways for leapfrog require engagement with essential needs. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dinesh and Kyun, for that bit of discussion. I think it was very enlightening for everybody. And it also resonates with some of the points that Betoke made earlier about building local capabilities and types of engagement with the global value chains. So thanks for that. Rashmi, you've made a few points in the chat related particularly to micro and small and medium enterprises, as well as others. Would you like to perhaps raise your points verbally?
Okay. So developing countries like India, we are facing a lot of issues for medium scale industry because the adoption of digital technology, industry 4.0, now industry 5.0. So there are all the technologies are great enabler, as we all know, but still the developed countries like India, we are having a lot of challenges for the implementation. So such scenarios in this book, is there included some of the points? That's my question.
May I pass on that question to perhaps Lakhvinder or KJ, some of the editors? that have a good overview of the different chapters and how they
I
treat.
think KJ will respond.
Great.
No, I think the issue as such with respect to MSME is not dealt with, but the current context or the predicament of the small and medium enterprises in Kerala in the overall framework of GlobalX calls for building systems that enabling the capability building, that at the sectoral level and the subnational level. In India, we have actually gone back in a big way in this respect, because in 2013, the National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy for the first time articulated the need for building systems at the regional level, that is regional, what is called national regional innovation councils. But that is now by now closed down in all these states, except for, say, in Kerala, in fact. So the emphasis that was given for building capabilities at disaggregated manner in terms of sector and region, that we need to give a lot more emphasis. And this is one of the central messages that comes from the book, which is equally applicable to the context in which the MSMEs are operating in India as of now.
Thanks, KJ.
May I add
Lakwinder.
something?
Yes, please. Please, go ahead.
I think that if we look at the regional experience and United Nations initiative to try to transfer technology and solve the problems of small and medium industries in India, a lot of research centers were created in India that has been still functioning and providing technological help to the various MNC. So the issue here is that largely in the globalization period, the emphasis has shifted from small industry to big business. And I think that Kunli may be very happy to know that India is following exactly the model of the Korea big business to be developed. Now you can count 5-6 big businesses which have been counted globally and harnessing almost 20% of the GDP. So I think that is the change which has happened, and the small sector feeling neglected in terms of the problems which they have been facing. And I think that is the future of India, which is expected to take care. So the book which is emphasizing the building global, national, then subsectoral and regional and local innovation system gives some kind of hope that the problems of such kind of economy like India, where small farm and small industry is predominantly providing employment and income to large section of society, and especially focusing on to meet the basic needs of the people. Thank you.
Thanks, Lakwinder. Kyun, I see that you want to respond to that.
Maybe Arenda the respond first. Maybe she raised the hand to
Okay.
speak up.
Great. Okay. I thought you wanted to respond directly to this one, but Aradhana, please go ahead.
Aradhana was interested to speak, I think.
Actually, I would like to highlight the case of Taiwan here. Taiwan is known to be a powerhouse of small and medium enterprises. And if you look at the way they have grown or they have developed, it's through GVCs. They actually invited in foreign direct investment, and they connected their medium and small enterprises with those GVCs. And today the condition is that these are the GVCs, they are harnessing the FDI linked companies rather than the other way around. So these companies, foreign companies, are dependent more on the local MSMEs. So I think that we need to understand the dynamics of development. And the dynamics of development in this globalized world is that we need to really use the opportunities that is thrown open by this globalization, because we know that we cannot compete. You see, so I think we cannot just talk about the idealism, we have to talk about the realism. So far as GVCs are concerned, whether you take Korean example, Korea is very much dependent on FDI even today. Despite having such prowess in manufacturing, they are actually promoting their services through FDI. So they are promoting free economic zones where the focus is on inviting very high technology foreign companies, foreign companies in very high technological sector. So I think we need to really look at the growth processes of different countries and try to see how we can really, leverage the situation in which we are thrown into, rather than really going back to the 50s or 60s. So I don't know, but somewhere I felt that there was a sentence which I got from Dinesh Abrol's article where I felt that he's talking of those spillovers. So maybe I was wrong, but actually I personally believe that that's a very strong way now to really. So China, we cannot say that China is growing on its own. China actually started learning from foreign direct investors, and they actually make the maximum use of the presence of foreign direct investors in their countries. And not many countries can do that, but they did it. So I think that if you can do it, if you can really channelize your resources in your own capabilities by keeping foreign direct investment as the base, then I think this is a good strategy to adopt. So this is what I would like. And whether it is small and medium enterprises or it is large enterprises, both ways, I think that, and I will also give you an example of jewelry making in India. You see, we were actually having this domestic industry, but then we got into the global value chain of machine-made jewelry industry through SEZ. And today the condition is that it is one of the highest export earner in the country, and we are known for these exports. So I think we can draw on our own examples to really understand how we can make the use of these global value chains, and we can actually promote capabilities, domestic capabilities, using them or leveraging them. That's what actually I would like to say. Thank you very much.
Now let me make a comment. Okay, first from Taiwan cases. Taiwan is open to GVC, but they generated locally owned company like a TSMC. That's why Taiwan became a high-income economy. Taiwan has almost 10 global Fortune 500 company, which is a little bit more than India. India needs more big businesses. India is good at generating startups, but they also need to generate big business like China. Otherwise, India remain as a middle-income countries. My point is that it's not the SME startup itself, but how to make them grow quickly as a big businesses. You need the support, you need the better environment before they acquired by foreign company and closed.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
unless you really use unless you leverage their presence, it is not possible. So as I said in my presentation also, Southeast Asian countries are continuously dependent on foreign direct investment. They are continuously trying to attract more and more foreign direct investment. So it means that there is some problem in their learning. You see, they made production capabilities, not the technological capabilities. So that is where they have to really see how to promote this kind of system and promote technological capabilities, because we know that every country is specialized. Thailand is specialized in automobile, Malaysia is specialized in electronics, then Philippines is specialized in electronics and computers and information technology. So every country is specialized, but then how to really leverage those things, to build domestic capability. So there's somewhere, that is where the countries are lacking, because their focus remains on infrastructure development to attract more and more of FDI. So actually, I'm very much against these large regional economic corridors, which actually have put many countries into these perils of debt. So this is precisely, and this is how I look, this is where I see the importance of technology and putting more money into technology. So whatever you are getting, you put more technology, more money in technology and really promote yourself. But you cannot simply say that you don't see any role of GVCs and MSMEs can grow by themselves. I think these are not some things, I mean, at least in my view, I don't really endorse that view. Thank you.
May I intervene as the chairperson and just say that this discussion has been extremely useful, and in a sense it outlines one item on the research agenda for Global X. I mean, I think nobody is in favor of a closed economy today. I mean, because it would be completely unrealistic. So the issue is, how should countries in different positions, geographically, economically, etc., size-wise, design their openness? Because I think that is the issue, that all countries have to design their openness policy. There's no system which is completely open, and then almost no system completely closed. So that is the issue. And what you want to do is to establish long-term development, which implies that openness should contribute to capacity building and competence building in your country. So I think that was, for me, a very useful discussion. Thank you.
Great.
Erika.
Doctor, may I, there are more questions in the chat. There are hands up, but I wanted to check with you time and whether we can take a couple of more questions and comments before we wrap up.
KJ?
I think
You're the boss.
you can take a little more to pick up the questions and carry the discussion for another 10 minutes.
Great.
Another
Okay.
10 minutes. Okay.
Great. So so we have Dinesh's hand up.
May I step in?
Erika, actually just 1 minute. I need to go because my family is waiting for me for dinner. So I'm so sorry, but yeah, but I will catch up.
Great.
With the
Thanks,
discussion
Aradhana.
later. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Aradhana.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for a great presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fine, Aradhana. No issue. No issue.
Great.
Okay, you carry on. I can wait for 5
Yeah.
minutes.
Dinesh.
Yeah, very quickly, it's a vast subject, and I think we need, as rightly Bal has said, that the GVC issue, we need to separately discuss it, and it's also a issue for research agenda. But let me put it in 3 stylized facts. Number one, that we got to rely firstly on the home market. It cannot be export-led. Exports are needed. Openness is needed. But certainly, if you do not stand on your feet, I remember Gandhi, I remember various other leaders of the freedom movement in India, stand on your own feet. And that is very, very important. Exports can be built on industrialization, similarly various needs of the public services of the Alliance for smaller countries for Global South is also a strategy that we argued in the post-Bandung situation in the 1970s as a part of the new international economic order, which got replaced by WTO and replaced by whatever, etc. Let me not get into the details of that. The post-80s phase, as far as it's concerned, there is a time today to now disrupt that system, because even the US does not want it. Even Europe does not want it anymore, as far as it's concerned. A new order can be created. Let's be bold. Let's think creatively, and let's do put the pillars and the new principles of what that order would be. And I think that's what we need to do, thinking about it rather than saying going back again to the business and big tech. And the last point which I want to make as well, Taiwan, South Korea, etc. They had the advantage of the earlier Cold War as far as is concerned. And I don't want to get into the details. It's a vast subject in itself. And Aradhana, we can discuss it over long email exchanges also if you want. And you are going to be in India, and that will be a great opportunity to again come back to you on that issue as concerned. So let's not take examples of and Taiwan and South Korea did show indigenous effort, and as a result, there are a lot of and that is a challenge for Europe as well. I don't know how Europe is going to react, and I'm waiting for the Europe to. But the way I see, Europe is trying to work out its China strategy. I have still lessons to learn from that, and I would like sometime Bal to tell us how is Europe negotiating its China strategy and the US strategy. Thank you very much.
It's great that we
Okay,
have another Cold War. It's great we have
Erik-
another Cold War coming.
Erik is going to take one more question, I think.
Yes, there is a question by Dr. Bishwajit on the chat that I thought it was quite pertinent. That is asking about this. In the presentation, Aradhana made the point about the book dealing with some issues that had to do with debt in the context of the COVID-19, and it's asking Dr. Bishwajit is asking about, isn't this trade-off between advocating for more innovation and also in connection with acquiring more debt and financing that innovation in some cases with debt. So is it going to lead to a debt crisis for the poor countries? How to meet that challenge of innovation, economic growth, and the debt situation? So I'm not sure if any of the editors or any of the authors that are present would like to comment on that.
I think Lakhwinder or KJ.
I think this is a very larger macro question which is being faced by the global economy, especially debt is rising at a faster rate. Some of the countries are expected to be in debt trap. But when we look at the Indian scenario, we will see that household savings has dipped substantially over a period of time. And that has been the policy of the government over a period of time to discourage household savings. And therefore, you'll find that they depended more, instead of borrowing from the households, they have started borrowing from the international agencies. So that does mean that, the reversal is expected to happen, that you have to promote household savings. Even small savings turn out to be collectively very large savings from where governments have been usually borrowing. And the East Asian experience has been that high rate of savings and high rate of investment has been generated not from borrowing, but from the local savings which they have generated. So I think that is the kind of, even the from household savings, a substantial amount of money can be diverted to investment and research and development to develop the kind of technologies that is catering to the basic needs of the people. So it is not a trade-off. I think that it is a complementary to each other, and we need to change the strategy to deal with the debt and shift the attention towards investment in innovations, and that is focusing on the basic needs that will try to realize us the effective demand in the country, and that will also deal with the kind of debt which we are accumulated over a period of time. Thank you.
Erika?
That's good. I think I hand over to you, Bentoke, for the wrapping up.
Okay, I think we had a very good discussion on the basis of a fantastic book showing the potential of GlobalX. I think we could hope that we get more books of this kind where the network is mobilized to understand some current phenomena. I think it's in the tradition of our great founder, Chris Freeman, who actually worked always with what's happening in his real lifetime, the current as history. I also think that the book, as I mentioned, gives some inspiration for a research agenda. I already mentioned the important role of nature, but I would say that the uneven access to vaccines, it cost many lives in the global south. And one issue is how to transform intellectual property regimes so that innovations contribute to global intellectual commons with real access for actors from the global south. And I know Erika, for instance, is expert on intellectual property rights. So she would be a very good leader of such initiatives. But the COVID crisis also revealed the costs of lack of coordination in a divided world, and the divided world has become even more divided since the COVID crisis. And here I would like to ask how GlobalX scholars can contribute to the formation of a worldwide innovation and competence building system, which could be built from below. I think that is another major challenge for GlobalX. So if the organizers and editors are happy with that, I would ask everybody to open up their cameras so we can see who have been with us. And they may also open up their microphones and we could say hello to each other. And we could start to say thank you and goodbye to KJ, to Lakwinder, to Dinesh, who made some very interesting interventions, to Coin Lee, and so on. So hello, everybody.
Hello.
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 And
Okay,
good to
bye
be
bye.
here.
now.
Thank
This
you
is
Or
a
all.
great
want to add
discussion.
something, KJ.
Thank you, Bal. I think you have set a wonderful setting for the coming roundtables, and you have also given some topics. We are really committed to take it up. So let me request my colleague, Dr. Kiran Kumar, to say the formal.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And Erika is my favorite student. She's a product of GlobalX, the best product we ever made. So I'm very proud to have been share responsibility for her great performance.
Thanks,
So
Bentoke. Thanks, Bentoke. I think Kiran wants to say something.
Who?
Formal out of
Kiran.
Bal. Yeah.
Andrew.
Kiran. I see he's
Kiran.
with the camera on and waiting to speak.
Who wants to say something?
Kiran is going to propose a vote of thanks.
Yes. I propose a toast.
Yeah.
You are going to
Kiran,
propose?
you speak now. Kiran, you speak now.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
It is my pleasure to offer a word of thanks on behalf of Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation as well as GlobalX Secretariat. At the outset, I thank everyone for joining for this wonderful book launch today. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Professor Bento Kemal, Professor Erika Kramer Embula for accepting our invitation to chair this book launch function, and also setting the stage for the discussion with wonderful initial remarks. I would like to thank Professor Aradhana Agarwal and Professor Kyun Lee for very detailed thoughts and critical remarks on the book, which has led to a lot of discussion today. I would like to thank the editors of the book, Professor Lakhwinder Singh and Professor K.J. Joseph, for all the tireless efforts to bring out this book within time. And without their dedicated effort, this would not have been a fruitful outcome today. And I would like to thank all the authors who contributed very interesting chapters for the book. And I would like to thank all the participants. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our support system at GIFT for making this event a successful one. Thank you and goodbye until we meet next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All.
Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Thank you.
And wonderful evening for us. It is really great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Rika,
Can we get the book online?
Yes, yes. This is
I got it.
KJ can supply.
So they can send it to you.
Right.
I think this is not to be publicly asked.
At least the
No,
book could be shown,
you
sir.
cannot. You
That's
So
cannot.
at least
No,
the
of course you cannot.
book could be shown on the camera.
Okay, we have to
Okay.
close now.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a night. Good night.
Good night to all.